Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. The Road to Autonomy is brought to you in part by Stantec Generation AV. Stantec Generation AV combines some of the most experienced AV experts in the industry with the resources of a global engineering firm. Stantec Generation AV provides education, consulting, assessment, and guidance to any industry interested in autonomous vehicles. Learn more at stantec.com. Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to welcome Jason Fischer, Executive Chief Engineer, Autonomous Vehicles GM, to the podcast. Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Grayson. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have you here because the Origin is the future of autonomy. GM has done a bang-up, marvelous job introducing the Origin, which raises the question, how important is the Cruise Origin to GM's autonomous vehicle plans?
Yeah, the Cruise Origin is incredibly important to GM's autonomous plans. We believe that at General Motors, we're pursuing what we believe is the most comprehensive path to autonomous mobility in the entire industry. You look at the gains that we've made in Super Cruise. We've doubled the miles in Super Cruise. We're coming out with Ultra Cruise in the near future here. And the Origin is really the next key player in ride sharing and allowing new ways for GM to unlock different revenue streams and transport people and products in a way that people haven't seen in the industry. That's been led by our Bolt AV program, right? We're getting the basics down with the Bolt AV, and then we're going to translate that into the Cruise Origin, where it is GM's first autonomous EV ride-shared vehicle. And it will also be not just a people mover, but we'll be able to transport products for our customers as well.
How much learnings have you had from the Bolt AV as you develop the Origin AV?
We've had a lot of learnings from the Bolt AV. Obviously, when you bring this technology to the forefront, and it's brand new technology, you have to learn what the customer expectations are. We haven't done this in the industry before. And so not only are we learning for ourselves how the autonomous system is meant to work, how it's meant to operate, and our goal is to have human-like behavior, superhuman-like driving ability. And so the Bolt AV really sets the foundation for us to be able to quickly put the Cruise Origin out in a scalable manner. And so the Bolt AV is kind of our learning opportunity before we expand the Cruise Origin. So we have a ton of learnings. We have a one-team atmosphere with Cruise. We don't do transactional type processes or transactional type activities with one another. Everything's just one team. And the Bolt AV started off as the Bolt EV, and then we've transformed that into the AV. And that's really the leading technology for how we're going to scale the Cruise Origin.
Kyle Vogt's been very public in interviews about how the Bolt EV helped Cruise accelerate their technology. He's been very bullish on that. I'm very excited to see. So now, all part of the GM family, how the Origin is going to accelerate that. If you look at the progress that Cruise made from the A4 Audi originally to the Bolt EV, where Kyle said it accelerated, I can't wait to see what the Origin is going to allow the company to do in terms of acceleration. How is the Origin being manufactured?
So the Origin is being manufactured at our Factory Zero plant, which is in Detroit, Hamtramck. And it's our first fully dedicated electric vehicle assembly plant. Name Factory Zero actually reflects the significant role that facility plays in advancing our vision for a world of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. The manufacturing specifically of the Origin is very different from what you would see on conventional vehicles, primarily because of the form factor. So where you would see conventional processes on a typical manufacturing vehicle, the Origin is actually manufactured very differently. We have our own body shop, we have our own general assembly, we have a shared paint shop. And we need to do that just because of the form factor of the vehicle. I would say one example that I can point to is where the windshield is put on in the Origin. On a typical process, the windshield's installed very early on in that process in the body phase. Because of the form factor, we have to do our fluid fills and do some other things in order to actually manufacture the vehicle. And we actually put our windshields, one of the last things that we put on the car when it's typically one of the first, or I'd say mid things that you would put on a vehicle. So our manufacturing team has done a very good job of thinking outside the box on how we would re-engineer and remanufacture this vehicle, not only for efficiency and safety, but also for scalability. We want to be able to scale these Origins. We recognize the total addressable market out there, and we want to capture that revenue stream. And so the only way to do that is have that deep integration work, not with just GM and Cruise on the technology, but also that deep integration work with our manufacturing facility so that we can scale and we can really take advantage of that total addressable market.
Advantage GM. I think that's one of the greatest advantages that GM has for autonomy. You make some of the world's best vehicles. Your vehicles last a long time. They're rugged. They're out there. Is GM's engineering heritage of building great vehicles playing a role in the Origin as you look to build this and scale it?
Yeah, absolutely. when you look at GM's mantra, safety is always at the forefront of what we do. So the first thing we engineered, and we're only going to bring this vehicle out, and timing is going to be gated by our safe deployment strategy. When you look at it from an engineering perspective, we do all the validation testing, we do all the component testing, we do all the subsystem testing that you would do on a conventional vehicle. We've also taken a look at how AVs are going to be, the load cases and the operating domain of those AVs, and we've tailored some of our validation techniques. We've tailored some of our engineering. We've tailored those things for AV deployment. Not only have we tailored them for AV deployment, we've also tailored them so that we can scale and keep these vehicles on the road as much as possible. So serviceability, manufacturing for serviceability, manufacturing for low operational expenditures, taking advantage of economies of scale, all kind of went into how we engineer this product. But that starts with, GM has a history, 100-year history of making great products, and you see them on the road every day. We haven't wavered from that, especially from a safety perspective. We haven't wavered from that when we bring these autonomous vehicles out. And I think you hit a very good point, and that's the deep integration that we have at our manufacturing facility with General Motors and with the Cruise Origin. We partnered with Honda and with Cruise. We have two great OEMs and a great, I'll say, semi-startup company working on this technology. And starting with a white sheet of paper and really understanding our customer base, our marketing information, and saying, what is this vehicle really meant to do? And engineering from the ground up instead of putting sensors on an already existing vehicle is a big advantage for both GM and Cruise, and be able to have that plant quality, be able to have that validation quality, be able to have that safety quality that GM stresses so much in the organization, and having that deep integration, that rooted integration. What you're going to find is a very reliable, very safe product out in the road for our customer base.
Does that help you build trust when the Origins go out into the public, where they know, okay, this was a GM manufactured product. It wasn't put together, no pun intended, in somebody's garage. It was built on a world-class assembly line by world-class engineers. Does that help?
I think there's a number of things that help. So to answer your question, yes. Having General Motors and Cruise being the backbone of how we've done this, recognizing that we have a purpose-built vehicle, a vehicle that is truly intended for the autonomous technology. It's truly intended with the customer in mind. It's truly intended with an operational mindset in mind. That helps build trust with our customer base. When we started doing clinics and we started clinicking different form factors a number of years ago, a lot of the comments that we got back were the form factor of the vehicle looks like it should be housing this technology. The technology looks like it's integrated into the vehicle. It doesn't look like an add-on. It doesn't look like an accessory. It looks like we always call it a purpose-built vehicle. It looks like a purpose-built vehicle for the technology. It looks like a purpose-built vehicle to give customers an amazing experience that they're not going to find in any other vehicle that's out in the industry right now.
From a safety perspective, how are you going to position it to the consumer that's going to ride the Origin when the consumer's used to facing forward, front seat, back seat, and now they're going to face each other? What are you going to do?
So that's a great question. GM always has safe deployment in mind in whatever product we bring out to the market. We talked a little bit about Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise, the validation testing, and I think the proof is in the pudding on those. We have very good safety records on those vehicles. We do have to declare public knowledge every time that the vehicle's in an incident, and we do that, right? We follow all the public policy and all the regulatory means in order to display those incidents. And, if you look up, there haven't been any incidents that have been the fault of our AV vehicles. So we're building trust with our customer by having them on the road, proving that they are superhuman-like drivers. But I think more importantly, as I mentioned, the AV will go through, the Cruise Origin specifically, will go through all the safety validation testing that any other vehicle has gone through. It will also go through safety validation, not just from a subsystem, a component, and a vehicle perspective, but it also goes through safety validation from a software perspective, from a host vehicle software perspective, and from an AV software perspective. And timing is really going to be gated, again, by our safe deployment strategy, which General Motors holds very dear. We have a subset of very smart safety engineers that help us with when the vehicle will be ready to go based on internal metrics that we have. I'm not allowed to explain what those metrics are, but we have internal metrics that we have that we need to meet in order to put the vehicle out on the road. We're confident, and I would say we're exceeding those metrics as of today. And so when you look at, you mentioned the heritage, when the GM heritage, you talked about a little bit about what are we doing from a validation perspective. We're not cutting any corners. That's not the way GM does work. It's always going to be safe deployment. It's always going to be customer safety first. In terms of turning the customers around and having them the campfire seating, we're following all of the safety regulations, all the FMVSS regulations, in order to make sure that we have the same, I would say, personal customer occupant care that we would give any other customer in the vehicle. No matter where you're facing, we're going to meet those requirements from an FMVSS perspective in order to make sure that our customers and our occupants are safe in the event that the vehicle is in an incident.
I've said this to many of the cruisers, the individuals and the team members over at Cruise. Cruise cares. And what you describe emphasize what I've said to them before. Cruise cares. And I'll go even further and say GM cares. Mm-hmm. You're putting your name on a product that you're putting on the road that could have deadly consequences, and you're not cutting corners. GM and Cruise care. I give you a lot of credit there. That's well done.
Well, thank you for that. And I would say Mary Barr is at the forefront of, safe deployment, and safety is our number one priority. And we just don't deviate from that. That is always on the forefront of everybody's mind. Every decision we make, is this the safest possible path that we can choose for our customer? And those are really what guide our decisions, our validation, our testing, and our deployment.
And that's what builds trust. Because without trust, there's no autonomy.
Yeah.
When a consumer first goes for a ride in the Origin, what can they experience when the doors open? Do they get in, they put their seatbelt on? Does it say, beep, beep, hello, welcome to the Cruise Origin? What is that experience like?
I think the way that I'd like to describe what the customer is going to feel is inviting. The vehicle is it's an inviting experience for our customer. As the vehicle gets close, there will be an identifier on the vehicle, a number, a symbol that will allow you to know exactly which vehicle is yours. We talk about the door opening. The door has an elevator style door opening. That was very purposeful as well. The elevator style door opening really invites you to want to walk into the vehicle. We've done some styling cues that help the customer on entry egress. So we've lowered the floor as low as we possibly can. Getting in the vehicle is very easy. We very purposefully have put things in the vehicle so that people that have some mobility challenges, they've got handholds so they can get in the vehicle if it's difficult for them to get in. It's a very inviting vehicle to get into. And then when you get in, it's spacious. It's incredibly spacious. We designed the vehicle so that we do have that campfire seating style. And it's very spacious in the fact that, if you and I were sitting in that vehicle, we could darn near put both of our legs up and our feet would barely even touch. I mean, that's how spacious it is on the inside. And that was very purposeful because when you get into rideshare, we wanted to make people feel comfortable getting in a vehicle with maybe people they don't know, and having that extra space gives them that level of comfort. It's a very inviting feel. We have warm colors in the vehicle. We have lighting strategies that will dim and make you feel comfortable getting in the vehicle. The seats are very comfortable. We did very purposeful things, like we've made the seatbelts orange because we want people to be able to get in and know right where the seatbelt is, because they might not be used to understanding where the seatbelts are in this particular vehicle, even though they are in conventional positions, but they're very logical for people to see, to put in. That we've got 4 overhead screens. Those overhead screens are meant to help you. They'll tell you to fasten your seatbelts. They'll give you some information on the vehicle. They'll show you where the start ride button is. It will help you close doors. It will do the things that it needs to do so that you can get in and relax. We're cognizant of people's time. And I think that's what's great about this autonomous vehicle is we're giving people time back where they don't have to be at a stress level in traffic where they're worrying about other cars around them or driving. They can just sit back. They can have a conversation with people very safely. They can get on their computer. They can get on their phone. They can do those things. So that's, the experience that you get. It's an invitation for the vehicle to want you to come in and give you the greatest experience that there is. Even when we exit the vehicle, when you exit the vehicle, you can purposely push the button and the vehicles have a nice elevator style door out. Then you can exit very safely. You can exit very easily. So inviting is really the word that I think of when I think of the Cruise Origin and how it's going to interact with the customer.
And that's what we want. The customer, the first 2 minutes, this is cool, it's exciting. Minute 3, this is boring. Yes, mission accomplished. It is boring. Enjoy your conversation, enjoy your coffee or your laptop. Then there's the individuals that they can't go on roller coasters because they get motion sickness. Have you looked into any of that with perhaps they're riding backwards that from a motion sickness standpoint of how perhaps it's the lighting or the colors that says,
We have. I actually come from a vehicle dynamics background. So my job was to make sure that people didn't get motion sickness by how we tune the vehicle in terms of ride quality. So, one of the things that we're very conscious of is, your inner ear, your vestibular cueing into your ear has to line up with what you see on the exterior of the vehicle. And when you get that mismatch is where a lot of people see motion sickness. So when you get into the vehicle, we've provided a lot of what we call daylight opening. Those 2 doors have enormous windows on the side, so you can see to the outside. Even when you're looking on your phone, your peripheral will see what's going on the outside, and it will match up with your vestibular cueing, and it won't make you get sick. There are some people that the propensity is when they're driving backwards, it doesn't matter what anybody does, they may find themselves getting a little bit ill. But Cruise has strategies and such that if you don't want to ride backwards, we're not going to force you to get into a vehicle and ride in that particular seat. On the app, if you choose, you can say, I have to be a forward-facing rider, and we will only give you a vehicle that has open forward-facing seats so that you have that comfort level that we're not going to put you in a position that would make you feel in any way uncomfortable. We're going to make it as comfortable as we can for the passenger. So we've looked at those. We've actually mapped all those modes. We've mapped all those what we call transmissibility functions from the road all the way up to what the customer feels. And we feel like we have a safe distance between what a customer's human body can experience and the road inputs that we put into the vehicle. And then we have the app that allows you to face forward if you would like to face forward. So we feel very, very comfortable that motion sickness will be minimized on this vehicle.
That goes back to what I said earlier. GM Cruise cares. You're taking into account that individual that might not be comfortable with that, and you're allowing them the option to choose. That's another thing that says that GM Cruise cares. We all understand, and you talked about this earlier, uptime is going to be the most important factor. From an operation standpoint, what's going to be done to ensure uptime? Is it the battery can go certain 300 miles? Is it rapid charging? What's going to be done to ensure that uptime so your customers do not have to wait and wait and wait? They can get in the vehicle and go to their destination.
Yeah, several strategies. Let's talk customer first. We've done everything we can so that we have a short time frame from when the customer wants to get in the vehicle with the invitation of the doors to when they can sit down, make things very easy so that they can get in and hit the start ride button. We have metrics of how fast we want customers in, seated, and hit the start ride button. That improves uptime because your customer doesn't have to guess. They don't have to figure out how to use the product. From a product reliability and a product usability perspective, it's going to be very intuitive. So from a customer perspective, that's one area of uptime. The other area of uptime that you mentioned was, what have we done from an engineering perspective to get there? And we've thought through all of these things. Range is obviously very important, right? We have the GM's Ultifi battery, our next generation battery that's going to be in the vehicle. And it has a range that we're comfortable with that will be able to go through urban environments, the majority of the day. And it's not so much necessarily the range of the battery, the overall range of the battery, but it's what we call operating range. There may be times where we need to be opportunistic with charging, where the vehicle will drive, and if there's an hour downtime and we know that there's a low propensity for people mover or product mover, the vehicle will go to a charging station and it will just kind of top off. And so we can keep those operating miles generating on that particular vehicle to keep revenue high. And then the third thing that we've done many, but the third thing I'll talk about when we get to uptime is our operational mindset and how we modularly design the vehicle. We design the vehicle where if we have to provide some maintenance, either routine maintenance, scheduled maintenance, or unplanned maintenance, we've designed the vehicle so that it's very easily be taken apart and put back together. And typically things are minutes instead of hours. And we design the vehicle specifically so that it's modular in that respect. We do recognize that things will get soiled on the inside of the vehicle. And so we have strategies where we can replace parts very, very quickly when they go back to a service center.
Was the Origin designed to mimic a fuselage similar to what the airline industry uses? And I want to point out two things that I think the Cruise has done phenomenal. You hired Gil West, the former COO of Delta. A gentleman's been on the podcast before. He's a master of operations. Then you hired Anthony Gregory from Southwest. You have a lot of really great airline experience in there. Was that part of the strategy, run the Origin similar to an airline by hiring these wonderful airline executives?
Yeah, we certainly took the airline industry into consideration when we designed the vehicle. A lot of that architectural design had to be done years ago. And so our strategy was, we want the body to last as long as it possibly can. So our body right now, from a structural perspective, will last over 1 million miles. We do recognize that things like, obviously, wearable items, tires, brakes, those need to be changed. But we actually engineered those to last longer on the vehicle, and then we've bundled some service events. So we've designed the vehicle so those routine maintenance service events will all occur at one time. So when you think about, the airline industry, if they have to replace an interior, they have kind of the fuselage and then they modularly replace things on the inside of the vehicle. That's exactly how we've designed this vehicle, with that fuselage mindset and serviceability in mind, in order to maximize our uptime and maximize the revenue.
Years ago, United Airlines invited me to SFO, and I got to go see a teardown of a 747.
Oh, cool.
That was really impressive. And I said to Gil, I would never believe how much wiring is there. And I forget the number that he told me of how much wiring goes there. But they retrofitted the plane and then it went back into service. So I want to just clarify this to make sure I heard this right. The Cruise Origin will go over 1,000,000 miles. Is that right?
Yeah, we designed the body, the structural body components, and the architecture of the structural body to go over 1,000,000 miles. And our testing is proving that it will get there. So again, you really want what we call architectural components, right? Wire harnesses ought not to be replaced over the life of the vehicle. So we've designed them for that. We've designed them for a long life. We've designed the body for a long life, but seats are going to get soiled. Brakes are going to have to be replaced. Tires are going to have to be replaced. Those types of items are very modular and very easily replaceable. So absolutely, yeah, we've designed the body structure for a 1,000,000-mile vehicle plus.
That makes revenue.
You have to take advantage of the economies of scale. And so that's why we looked at, the Pareto chart of, well, what are the most expensive components and how can we get those to last the longest? Because we don't want to replace those, but other components that we know are wearable that are less expensive, we will replace those, but we don't have to replace the architectural kind of foundations of the vehicle.
What strategic advantages does GM's battery technology give you in order to achieve that 1,000,000-mile vehicle?
That's a good question. I can't get into the specifics of, battery technology and cell technology, but we have a strong relationship with LG, and we have our own cell chemistry that GM's working on with LG that will give us an advantage with our Ultra 5 battery. We certainly are, I would say, pushing the boundaries of technology to increase that battery life. We're also looking at things like DC fast charging. How do we maximize the communications between the charger and the battery so that we can maximize battery life? And so there are strategies that we've put in place in order to continue doing things that we need to do in order to maximize that battery life. So it's that deep integration with LG. It's our partnership with LG. And then it's our engineering prowess behind how we're going to maximize that battery life through all the other technologies that we have. Because it's not just the battery, it's how you maintain that battery. It's how you service that battery. It's how you DC fast charge that battery. All those play into the temperature of the battery, right? All those play into battery life. And we believe that we've maximized and optimized those different strategies for battery life.
The deep partnership with LG is going to pay dividends. It's very similar to the deep partnership you have with Cruise because you gave them access in the early days to the Bolt, and that's paying dividends. And I can't wait to see the dividends that the LG partnership plays. To make autonomous vehicles work, there's a common denominator. They need sensors. Every different AV company lays their sensors out differently. How did you choose where to put the sensors on the Origin?
So, that was largely Cruise. They're masters of not only developing their own sensor technology, but also identifying where those sensors need to be. And so the strategy was there's different fields of view that you have, whether it's near field or long field views that you want to have. And so Cruise is really the master of how do we reduce the sensor set to the safest possible minimum set of sensors for us to get our job done and be able to see either long range or short range. You need to literally need to see right next to the vehicle so that you can see if a passenger or somebody's next to the vehicle. And then you need to see, I'll just say, a couple football fields away because we want to, you look at closing speeds. If we're doing 70 miles an hour down the expressway and somebody's coming at us, that's 140 mile an hour closing speed. And so you need to see very, very far so you can make decisions in time based on what's happening in the environment around you. And so Cruise has been integral in that. We have a centralized sensor system at General Motors. We have a very smart sensor R&D group called Cruise Munich or Cruise Europe. They're working on sensor technology. And then we have a team of design engineers that help locate where those sensors need to be on the vehicle.
I really like the harmony of GM and Cruise working as one because I've heard you several times, we. It's not, oh, that's Team Cruise, we're Team GM. It's the we. And from all the public statements that I've read, I want to give Mary Barr a lot of credit. I think she's done a fantastic job running GM. I think that her vision for autonomy is a vision that is in the future that will pay massive dividends for GM and for GM shareholders because point blank, Mary Barr, in my opinion, understands autonomy. GM's taken a very aggressive stance towards autonomy. I think it's wise. Frankly, I think it's brilliant. Why did GM first decide to embrace autonomy?
Well, GM's always had a long history of technology. You look at ABS brake systems, you look at some of the technology that's coming out. General Motors has always been on the forefront. And in my mind, I want innovations to come to GM to live, not to die. And I think Mary's also embraced that. And so innovations come to GM to live. And so when we look at, how can we help our customer base in a different area as opposed to just selling them a vehicle, this is one way that we can help get there. We're going to do it in the safest possible manner, as we've always mentioned. And you look at our comprehensive approach at what General Motors has done, it's actually quite unique compared to any other OEM out there. So we've jumped into full autonomy. We also have Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise. And you kind of look at Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise, you can continue to iterate and iterate and iterate. And over a period of time, eventually you get to full autonomy. And then we've also jumped to this full autonomous area. We recognize that there are customers out there that need this technology. And one of the ones that I'm most passionate at happens to be people with mobility disabilities. And so we go to different trade shows or areas where we can talk to people that have mobility disabilities, people that are wheelchair users, and they tell us, I want a level of freedom that I've never had in my life. My whole life, I've had a caregiver, right? I've had to have somebody help me into a vehicle. I've had to have somebody help me out of a vehicle. I want a level of autonomy where I can get from point A to point B by myself. I want to be autonomous. And so, we want to embrace the social aspect of this as well, because you mentioned several times, we do care. There's customers out there that need this technology. And I think one of the most wonderful gifts that we can give somebody is that level of freedom that maybe for a number of years in their life, they've never had before. And so when you look at what the Cruise Origin offers, it's ADA compliant and the door opening. The wheelchair users can get in there. We're working on technology. We're working on a mobility solution where a wheelchair user can get themselves into the vehicle. They can, secure themselves in the vehicle. We can get them from point A to point B without a caregiver. And to see that person's face light up, that to me is like one of the most wonderful things. Is somebody to tell me, you've given me a level of freedom, and they might be 30 or 40 or 50, and I've never felt this in my entire life. And so GM looks at social change. We look at how we're going to help not only the environment through the EV strategies, but how are we going to help socially? You look at statistics, like 94% of traffic accidents are caused by human error, which means the vehicle could have made the maneuver, but the human made the mistake. So we want to be able to safely deploy vehicles and provide a level of technology that provides safety out in the roads, and also congestion. There's 3 parking spots for every single person that has a vehicle on the road. I live in a city where I like green space. I'm an outdoors person. I do hiking. I do a lot of recreation activities. And so be able to reduce the amount of, I would say, asphalt in the road and bring green space. Those are all wonderful things that GM's working on. And this autonomous vehicle are going to help us get there.
Thank you for highlighting the social aspect. I want to share 2 personal stories with you on the social aspect. Years and years ago, I was the co-chair of the Autonomous Vehicle Task Force of the City of Beverly Hills, where we were tasked with bringing autonomy to the city and developing the strategy. And the one thing that we identified was Beverly Hills had an age-in-place policy where elderly residents were able to age, and the city provides services, help them get to the doctor, and go to the community center where they could play cards or see their friends. And in the early days, we tried to get these individuals to use Uber and Lyft. And no, we're not going to do that. And we would say, ma'am, sir, why is that? We're afraid because we're elderly, the driver might attack us. And we say, ma'am, sir, if we put you in a vehicle without a driver, would you? Oh, yes, then I'm safe. And then I can get to my destination, and then the individual there at the senior center could help them out of their vehicle. That was one aspect of it. And then prior to the Cruise acquisition of Voyage, Oliver Cameron invited me to the Villages and rode around in the Voyage vehicle. And the common question was with these individuals living in the Villages, can the vehicle go pick my grandkids up at the airport because I'm not comfortable driving on the highway so they can come see me? That's social impact at its best.
It is. And so our vehicle would be able to do that. They can pick the grandkids up and they can come see the grandparents. And, there are a number of statistics that we used on the social aspect of it where we tried to incorporate that into the vehicle. 30% of elderly people don't go to the doctor because they just can't find a ride. And that's sad. They want to get medical care. Medical care is available for them, but they don't have a ride to get there. Well, we can offer them that ride autonomously now. We can make them feel safe in an environment, right? The vehicle doesn't always have to be shared ride. If you want to have your own ride from point A to point B, you can choose that in the app. I want to drive specifically by myself, which gives them that level of trust and that level of comfort to get from point A to point B without other individuals that they don't know getting in that vehicle. So when we talk about social change, this isn't just about revenue streams and total addressable markets. It's doing what's right for our country and what's right for the globe as we expand globally.
And it could extend the age life because you bring in the mental illness and people get depressed if they can't leave their house. But if they're seeing their friends, they might perhaps exercise more, get healthier, just mentally be better. There's going to be so many positive things that autonomy is going to have on society. And we're only just scratching the surface until we can truly understand the positive impacts that autonomy will have on society. I like the path that GM's going towards autonomy. Now, you mentioned Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise earlier. I'm really curious, what role will Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise play in GM's autonomy strategy?
So that's a great question. Again, we always use that we theme at General Motors. So although there are parallel paths between Super Cruise, Ultra Cruise, and full autonomous vehicles, we do have a centralized sensor group that works on both of those parallel paths. So there's certainly, I would say, synergies between Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise and what's going on in the autonomous realm. We certainly learn from Cruise on Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise, and Cruise certainly learns from some of the parallel pathing that we're doing on Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise. So it's a very synergistic type activity that we have at General Motors. And the teams are co-located. Right now, they're virtually co-located, but in the future, they'll be co-located. So they'll be able to talk to one another and kind of have that, what are you working on your desk? Can I peek over your shoulder, right? And learn from you as you learn from us. So, and as I mentioned, we have people that extend themselves out to San Francisco from our Cruise Ultra Cruise department. We have people that from Cruise come here and they work with us on Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise technologies. So we really have that we theme, right? We're trying to do this smartly. We're trying to do this safely. We are doing this safely. And the only way to do that is to have a common safety strategy, whether it's autonomous or whether it's Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise, and making sure that, we're safely deploying these vehicles with all the safety systems and safety measures and metrics in place before we put them out on the road.
GM, as I said earlier, has aggressive path to full autonomy. What's the strategy? Is it scale, cruise? Is it eventually going into passenger-owned vehicles? What is the strategy?
Strategy is always safe. That is the strategy for us. So safe deployment is at the forefront of our mind. So again, timing is going to be gated by safe deployment, and it's going to be gated by our validation process. It's going to be gated by doing the right things to make customers feel safe and have trust in this technology. Once we have safe deployment, then you'll see scale. So you look at what we're doing on the Cruise Origin, right? Or the Bolt AV right now. We've already have a partnership with Walmart in Phoenix. We're working, with Walmart in those areas. And then we're also expanding to Austin on the Bolt AV. As mentioned, next year, we'll be going to introducing the Cruise Origin in those regions as well, those cities as well. And we'll also be going globally. We'll be going to Dubai, and then we'll have a small subset in Japan. So we definitely want to scale. The only way that we're going to be successful in this business is the ability to scale. And so we have that in our mind, but we're going to do it at a pace that's gated by safety. So as we scale, we're going to make sure that it's safe before we go in each of the cities that we deploy in.
And that ties into a post that Mark Royce, president of GM, made on a LinkedIn note on August 4th, 2022. Mr. Royce stated the following: advanced driver assistance technology in fully autonomous vehicles are officially no longer stuff of fiction. They're on our roads today. In my opinion, Mr. Royce is correct in his statement. As more vehicles are developed, deployed around the world, how do we develop public trust? So as Cruise goes into a new city, the public is waiting in line. Hi, Cruise Origin, I'd like to go for a ride today.
Yeah, it all starts with trust with the customer. And it's getting our product out there and demonstrating that our product is safe on the roads. One of the things that we've always kind of stressed is these vehicles are very predictable, right? The algorithms will drive exactly the same every single time that they're on the road. A human drives differently. Every human drives differently when they get on the road. So I'd say educating our customers that these vehicles are going to be very consistent. They're going to drive the same way. And also educating our customers that our vehicles never drive drunk. They never drive distracted. They can see the environment better than a human can see the environment, and they can make decisions quicker and faster and in a time frame, more than a human can. So, when you put all of that together and you educate your customer, that's how we're going to build trust. And our goal is really to create what we consider a consistent experience, whether it's with Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise or AV technology, so that at every turn, every stop, the rider gets in and they feel the vehicle behaving in exactly the same manner. And that really boosts their confidence in that technology.
And the other aspect, your vehicles do not get fatigued and they do not get stressed out.
That's exactly right. In fact, that's why we want you to have a relaxing atmosphere. We don't want the customer to get fatigued. We don't want the customer to get stressed out, right? There's one thing that we all have that we can never get back, and that's our time. And I think that's the advantage of these autonomous vehicles. People can use their time as they want to when they're in the autonomous vehicle. And so, yeah, the vehicle's not going to get fatigued, but it's also going to be a relaxing environment for the customer themselves.
And one day in the future, will GM perhaps sell an SAE Level 4 vehicle to a consumer?
So we've been committed that, at some point mid-decade, we will be deploying a personal autonomous vehicle. So we've made that statement before, and we're committed to that statement. And we are working on the technology as of today to have it ready by mid-decade. So I would say certainly there's a path for General Motors and Cruise to work on that technology so that we can provide that to a customer.
Oh, it's going to be exciting. I'm excited. I can't wait to see that rolled out.
Yeah, exactly. We're very excited about it as well.
On a daily basis, how do you think about autonomy? Because you shared a lot of really deep thoughts in this, but do you wake up every day, you're having breakfast thinking about ways to improve autonomy or way autonomy can improve society?
I do. I live autonomy. I mean, that is my life. That is my job. My job obviously is to provide the safest possible vehicle that General Motors can on time with quality for a profit. So, that's a pretty loaded thing to have on your mind all the time. But I'm always thinking about autonomy. Firstly, I'm thinking about the safety aspect of it, right? I'm very deep into the validation test reports. I'm very deep into the research and development work that we're doing. I'm very deep into the integration testing that we're doing, what's going out in the streets of San Francisco, what's going on at our Milford Proving Grounds. We've got the biggest proving grounds in the world that I know of, 140 miles of test track at Milford. That's my playground. I love going there, right? Going to the plant today. I love to see the plant, the manufacturing process. So, do I live autonomy? Yeah, unfortunately, that's my life, sometimes to a fault, but I live autonomy. Not only do I live autonomy from a technical perspective, but again, from a social perspective, I want to be able to enable customers that have cognitive disabilities or wheelchair users. I want them to be able to enjoy this product. People that have sight or hearing disabilities, I want them to feel comfortable in this vehicle. And I'm always looking for strategies or ways in order to improve the vehicle to get there. We talked about our elderly customers, right? We've said that we've got styling cues in there that helps with handholds getting in the vehicle, but they're disguised as cup holders and some other things that can be used in order for you to get it. So it's very purposeful, but it's very thoughtful on how we address those vehicles. And so I live that. And then obviously we look at personal autonomous vehicles. We look at different revenue streams. I'm always looking at what different business aspects can General Motors get into with autonomous vehicles, whether it's the Bolt AV, package people delivery, whether it's the Cruise Origin, or whether it's, our future of personal autonomous vehicles. So I live autonomy all day long. How are we going to optimize this for every single customer? How are we going to get that total addressable market? But how are we going to do it safely? Safety is always at my top priority because I want to build that trust with society that these are safe vehicles to get into. And I will put my name on not putting a vehicle out until it's safe to do that.
Smart. Another way you're building trust with society is electrification. The Origin's an all-electric vehicle. The Bolt's an electric vehicle. Why should all autonomous vehicles be electric vehicles?
I think that architecture just really lends itself to, from an electrical perspective and from an energy efficiency perspective, that's really what GM believes is the right strategy for autonomous vehicles. When you look at thermal systems and the energy that they draw, when you've got internal combustion engines, we looked at a number of different strategies, and we just found that the EV strategy and General Motors' road to 000 is really what we wanted to hit with this autonomous vehicle. And so that 0-0 strategy is absolutely exemplified by the Cruise Origin, right? Zero congestion, zero emissions, and zero crashes. Zero congestion, we have a ride-shared vehicle. We're going to reduce the number of vehicles on the road. Zero emissions, we've got the electric vehicle. We're a green company. We want to be a green company, and electrification is the way to get there. And so that's why we've chosen it. And it's a great architecture. It's the future of vehicles. Mary's going to turn our company to an all-electric vehicle company by 2035. And this is just one commitment that we have to doing what we say we are going to do in the time frame that we said we're going to do it.
And what you said earlier, innovations come to GM to live. You're clearly leading on innovation. And in your opinion, Jason, what is the future of autonomous vehicles?
Endless. I think the future of autonomous is endless. And I think we're just starting to scratch the surface. And I think, I keep telling our team that, I talked to Gil West, I talked to Kyle Vogt, I talked to Bill Nash, I talked to a lot of Cruise folks fairly regularly, and I talk to folks at General Motors, and I say, we're just starting to scratch the surface of what we're doing here. And we're going to acquire field data to help guide some decisions that we have in the future and shape how autonomous vehicles will be a benefit to society. So, I think the future of autonomous vehicles is endless. You look at, you can provide not just people movers, you can move products, you can offer services, you can offer, a number of different work streams that will allow you to capture the revenue that's out there in an efficient manner. Conventional vehicles only used about 5% of the day, right? We want to use these 95% of the day because they don't have a human that has to take breaks, get lunch, do those types of things. We can maximize that revenue stream because we can have these vehicles doing something 95% of the day. And we're continuing to figure out how to unlock those revenue streams on a daily basis. So I think the future of autonomy is really going to show, huge revenue and huge profit for the folks that know how to get it right. And you mentioned, we have some of the smartest operations people in the business. Gil West, Phil Mayer, Anthony Gregory, those folks are helping to bring the airline industry and how they operate vehicles and keep vehicles up and running and efficient. And from a business perspective as well, they're helping out with the business perspective on how do we maximize the 95% of the day that these vehicles are going to be on the road.
Cruise GM will succeed for several reasons. One, you're the we team. There's no I, that's the we team there. And the discipline and focus on running a business. That's the one thing I've never seen from an autonomous vehicle passenger company that I've seen from Cruise. You speak with Gil, you speak with Anthony. I got to give a shout out to my dear friend at Cruise, Rob Grant, who heads your policy and sustainability. Love Rob. Rob, you're the best, sir. Revenue, profits, scalability. And Rob says this to me, and so will all the other ones. Cruise is a business. And Kyle says it publicly as well. Cruise is a business, and that's the defining factor that's going to make you successful, because from day one, you decided to operate a business, not operate a science project. And Jason, as we look to wrap up this insightful conversation, what would you like our listeners to take away with them today?
What I want our listeners to take away for today is that safety is General Motors' priority. Safe deployment is General Motors' priority above everything that we do in the company. We are working together, as mentioned, as one team. We're going to bring this technology, and we're going to bring this technology as safely as we possibly can, as quickly as we possibly can. We believe, the forefront runners in this space, and we welcome the public to enjoy this journey with us. And know that there are people that really, truly care about you, that care about the customer, that care about making sure that we have economies of scale so that we can provide a service to somebody very, very safely at a very reasonable, affordable price, and that we're innovating this technology because we want to help society and generate revenue for our company.
GM cares, GM does not cut corners, and GM will deploy autonomous vehicles safely because the future is bright, the future is autonomous, and the future is the Cruise Origin. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the road to autonomy today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. This was wonderful.
Thank you for listening to the Road to Autonomy podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Want to get in touch? Follow us on Twitter at Road to Autonomy, or email podcast@brulteco.com. The Road to Autonomy is produced by Brulte & Company. The views and opinions expressed on the Road to Autonomy podcast do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Brulte & Company. The content discussed on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal, tax, investment, or business advice.